It's a different world, and it's something that I think every soldier overlooks actually when they leave, because they think, oh, of course, I'm a soldier, I'm a squaddy, I'm an infantryman. Of course I can handle this. Your world is opened up completely in different ways, We can all look successful. That's easy. Being successful is different. But at the end of the day, if you're driven, you'll get it.
Yeah.
It is, you've got to kind of push your way to the front. And how you do that is by research.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Entrepreneur TV. Now today, I have a very special guest in. He's called Mike. Now, Mike has had a very difficult time to self-employment. Not everybody's story in life goes easy, but I can tell you now he's truly an inspiration. So without further ado, let's go to Mike from Zeus Electrical. We're going to talk about your electrical company in due course.
Okay.
But you have such an inspirational, tough backstory. So I just want to sort of take it back a little bit if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just really talk about you being in the infantry with the British Army. How did you find it?
Yeah, well, of course, as I'm pretty sure most people will be aware, it is quite arduous, mentally and physical, but it's also very good as well. There's pros, there's cons. It's certainly a journey.
Would you say that some of those skills that you learned in the infantry, you've transferred over to your business now?
Yeah, of course. So, that drive, the persistence to actually, do long hours when it's necessary, that's something that, you learn in the army. You learn by repetition. You'll do something time and time again until it's right, or at least at an efficient standard.
Yeah.
So you learn things like that, and that is of course easily transferred into my line of work. Planning, stuff like that. The army's known for. British Army is one of the best. Its battle plans and whatnot. Of course that there is a lot of these things that are transposed, and I use them every day. Yeah.
Being in the infantry itself is tough.
Mm.
I know that probably it's not looked at as being one of the most glamorous roles in the British Army. But as I said to you earlier, it would be nothing without great infantrymen.
It really is true, yeah. It's a big, massive part of it. We do. I believe that. Of course, I'm going to be biased, but from my personal experience, it's one of the hardest jobs. It's the most physically demanding on your body jobs, and it's also the most physically demanding, on your mental health as well. So all these things come into play. But yeah, it's non-stop. But with these things, there is a lot of reward to be had. And of course, camaraderie comes with it. You go through experiences with people that you're never going to do that in another life.
No.
It's just you can't do it.
Now, obviously, you decided to come out of the army.
Yes.
That must have actually maybe been a tough decision, or was it?
Yeah, it was a tough decision. It kind of had, I suppose. So at the time, I was in a relationship, and I was due to get married, and we had a child on the way as well. So that was definitely something that was part of my decision. Amongst other things, we wasn't very active at the time, which I know that can sound maybe, could be taken into the wrong context. But of course, a soldier needs to be busy. An infantry soldier needs to be busy. And of course, we're always training. We're always, doing further learning out in the field and exercises and things. But, other than that, when you're in your battalion, what used to frustrate me would, we find that we're not getting beasted around the PT area, the back area. We're playing Call of Duty on inside, in our blocks on our own. And I just, you know what I mean? It was that kind of thing. I thought, I need something there. And then, you weigh things up, don't you? And I think that's how I do things anyway. How many ticks do I need to actually make the decision? And then it came to that point, and I did it. Can't say I didn't regret it at times. Absolutely. But, it happened, and here I am.
So you came out of the army. I then believe you decided to go out into the North Sea.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
What did you do out in the North Sea?
So it's quite funny, actually. I came back from the army, and obviously, I had a reputation. Obviously, this guy's, fit, strong, whatever. And there was a bunch of fishermen that they actually sailed out from, at the time they did, they sailed out from an estuary that was literally across from my house. And they needed crewmen because, of course, in the world of the fishing industry, it's very difficult to find crew because the job is disgusting. It's wild, also very fun. And for me, actually coming out, it was perfect. But I mean, when I went for the job, I got told by the skipper, they was laughing because they was like, we've had paras, we've had marines, they won't take it, But of course, I did, and I've really thoroughly enjoyed it. It's exhilarating working out there. I mean, first boat I worked on was it was like a 10-meter cat.
Yeah.
So small boat, and we was crabbing at the time, so it's potting. So of course, we launch out to sea. What happens is that there'll be a buoy there. I've got a grapple. I'll grapple it up, put it in the hauler.
Yeah.
But on this specific boat, because it's small, it wasn't self-shooting. Everything is done by hand. So you clear the pots, and it's a million miles an hour when the crab's on, or the lobster, because of course we get lobsters as well. Absolutely fascinating. It did nearly kill me that many times. And to be fair, the first trip on that boat, I was like, even for me, I thought this is eye-opening.
Yeah.
But I've worked on a few boats, actually. Out of Grimsby as well. And I mean, my last experience was actually on a North Sea trawler. Again, not a massive one, small boat, but that again, you got to think small boat. Big waves, a big boat, and it's kind of it works out the same, doesn't it?
It does.
It's very difficult when you're trying to, you've got every the weight, everything. It's a dangerous game.
Is it like Deadliest Catch? Because I mean, I watched that, and on my
exactly like Dangerous Catch. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, my heart is in my mouth when I watched that in Deadliest Catch, and I'm like thinking, is it really like it though?
It's like that and more real. Honestly, it is the most wildest experience I think I've ever had in my life working on those vessels. And big up to all the fishermen. Yeah, honestly.
I mean, my granddad, funny enough, he came out of the army. He was on a North Sea trawler. When I read this, I thought, my goodness, it's almost like looking at my granddad. Didn't go into electrics, but went into construction. Yeah. So your journey is very quite similar. But then obviously you decided to get your qualification, isn't it, of NAPIT? Is that correct?
Well, so NAPIT or NAPIT, people call it, they are a governing body. Now, what they are, they're not actually qualifications, but that allows me to basically be governed. Well, I don't have to use building control to basically get involved in my work. So all I have to do, I can produce a certificate, I can sign my work off, and that just gets sent and it's all done because I've passed I get inspected once a year. And it just makes things easy. So, and also, you've got, I don't know if people are aware of it, but if you need to find a registered electrician, you need to go on the website. There is a website for it.
Yeah.
It's like the Competent Person Register or something like that. I think it's a government website, and that will tell you, not only what they are qualified for, because of course we've got domestic installers, we've got full scope, that can do, everything. Including electrical installation condition reports. And, there's a big argument about all this in the industry. One I like to prefer to keep out of, to be fair, because you just see so many hypocritical points of view. And it is hard. It's hard to navigate through that. Like, really is, But yeah, for me, if it's there, I've got it, and that's it. So, yeah.
And I would imagine, again, being an electrician, you have to be ordered, you have to know your stuff, and I suppose then all these skills you've learned from these previous jobs have helped.
It does help, yeah. I mean, even you still get caught out, because there's so many different brands of materials, regulations change, it really is, in the world of like electrical installation condition reporting, which is something I do quite a lot of. You've really got to know your stuff, and you've got to know it well enough to be able to actually challenge someone, what they're saying, because it is hard to understand it. There's a lot of things that change. Obviously, installations, well, of course, well, things have changed. That's it.
Yeah.
You've got to have your head screwed on.
You do have to have your head screwed on. Now, did this sort of interest in going into electrical installation and test and everything else, did that come from some employment from Scotland? I believe you did some test engineering in Scotland, didn't you?
Yeah, another quite exciting job I had actually. And I think it was pretty much my first job when I got qualified. They took me on. It was a company in Lincoln. And yeah, turned up there first day, and I think just give me a van, and that was it. I think I was sent off to Inverness for my first job, and then I did this for probably 2 years, literally just driving around. But then one of the jobs that I think they had a contract with the telephone masts. So the telephone masts that you see, by the side of the roads and in fields and whatnot. Obviously, they have equipment that needs an electricity supply. So there is a distribution board in each one of them, which needs periodically testing. And of course, most of these things they're in remote locations or on the top of the building. But I mean, and I remember vividly, like when I went over to do the trip around the Scottish Isles, because I did all of them. I did like Lewis, Harris. I went to Shetland. Did them all, but that morning I set off from my house in Louth at the time to test one of these things on the top of a high-rise building in London.
Oh my goodness!
And then it was straight down that way then for the afternoon, driving onto a ferry.
Well, it's a good job then. You got rid of some fear, like I say, from the army again, transferring them skills over.
It's very lonesome work that, because you're completely alone for quite a lot of, and of course you're working away.
Yeah.
On a trip like that, obviously, I was probably there for 3 weeks.
Did you enjoy the Scottish weather? Be honest.
Yeah, well, no, do you know what? I've got Scotland. I have a big place in my heart. Scotland.
Yeah, I do as well, because the producer's sat over there, and he's from Scotland. So.
Well,
In fact, I think you've probably travelled more of it than he has, but at some points. But obviously, that you've now got into a good place in life with your company. But I think one of the things that you did say to me with coming out of the army, it's not always easy for other people, as we know, and that the army does teach you to go into battle, but doesn't really teach you much for civvy street.
No.
I know that you've made a fantastic transition.
Yeah.
If anyone's watching here and are coming out of the army, what bit of advice would you give them?
I think they need to have a clear goal of what they actually want to do, because you've got to, that drive can go away that you had in the army, and the reason that being is, I think, because we're kind of almost protected in the army, and as such you almost haven't got a choice. It's easy to just do it because you do it, because that's what your job is, and the army are very good at captivating on that. We work as a team, and someone will get called out for, or when I was in regular service, I mean, things have changed a little bit now. But yeah, it is complicated, and when you do come out, that family's gone. That even people, it's a different world, and it's something that I think every soldier overlooks actually when they leave, because they think, oh, of course I'm a soldier, I'm a squaddy, I'm an infantryman, of course I can handle this. But it does get difficult. You're around you're around people that you've not seen, you've not been around more often. Your world is opened up completely in different ways.
I think the ex-servicemen I've spoken to, some of them have said one thing is to try and create your own structure and routine fairly quickly, because you've been so used to routine in the army.
It's true.
And then to try and get your own little routine and work on that, and then it gently ease yourself.
This is it. You need to. I mean, we used to. Yeah. I mean, you need to make your own schedule, and you need to stick to it, just like you would in the forces. And then, of course, then you're going to adapt slowly and at the right pace. Because I think what happens is, well, there's obviously a massive problem with unemployment, isn't there, with people coming out, and then you've got the backhand of that, the alcoholism and and everything that it leads to with some people, and that's not just specifically servicemen. I'm not saying that at all, but of course, it is something that I think does need to be highlighted, because it's such a shame for me to see, and I've seen it personally with peers. These people are the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. Like I said, if you could see them while they're working, doing the job, as a soldier, whatever that may, whatever position in the army that may be, or navy or whatever, they're just fascinating people. They're screwed on. They're quick thinkers, and it's like you got to think as well. these soldiers prepared for war was, like when I was in the army, it was 2010 to 2014. So it was there was a lot going on in the world, wasn't there?
Yeah.
With, Afghanistan and, the predecessor with Iraq. But
Do you think as well that employers in particular should really look at ex-servicemen and think, well, they may not have the exact skills, but they could maybe get the skills?
Oh, 100%. And I think, if they give them that drive, and that's what they need, because they will work. That's what they're used to doing. They're used to following orders, and it doesn't mean they can't think for themselves, because they think for themselves in the field.
Yeah.
But within and around those orders, what more would an employer want?
Exactly. And I think that was what the good thing, even though you was out in the North Sea and you was out, in Scotland doing electrical tests, you had those employers who were willing to take that chance on you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but again, well, yeah, it does come from persistence, though. I had to, you've got to sell yourself on a CV, just like everybody does. You have to, and you have to sort of, and I think maybe that's what also a lot of servicemen maybe don't like to do either. I don't know. There's, but you've got to make an effort. Like, you got to put it. If an ex-serviceman put 10% of the effort that they do on a normal day in the military on Civvy Street, they'd all be millionaires. That's why there's obviously something wrong.
Yeah. Because
they're losing their drive. They're losing that, and I think it is, it's a blanket, it is a bit of a blanket. You might not like it, and because most people in the forces say they hate it and they want to get out. But then at the same time, you're on leave, you can't wait to get back. It's a love and hate relationship constantly.
Yeah, I can well imagine that. And funny enough, when you said that is actually some of the conversations I've had replayed to me by people exactly the same. So it's obviously something there. Do you also think that maybe they don't realise what great entrepreneurs they would be themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose there's also the factor of, well, you've got soldiers that go, they go in from like 17 3/4 or whatever. All they've ever known of adult life is soldiering.
Yeah.
That's it's a big difference, isn't it? Big difference. I mean, look, the military has its own law. It's it's a different world.
But they've got good skill sets, because you do have to be structured being an entrepreneur, and I would dare say that you're very structured in your business and in how you run things. So I know that you talked a little bit about having your own personal battles.
Yeah.
How hard is that when you have personal battles and trying to run a business?
It's very, very difficult. I'm sure many people are aware, mental health, and like I say, I used to drink too much, me personally, and it's just habit. And I think, that probably might have came from the military culture. I used to love it. You drink 10 pints on a night, and then you'd still, you still smash the PT the next day,
Yeah, you're four times.
In fact, I once actually, I probably shouldn't be promoting this. I'm not condoning it. I'm saying the opposite. But once I was running cross country for the battalion, and I'd only not been in long, so I'd signed up for it. I'm going to run. I love fizz, And then that night, the night before, all the older lads, the bods, they're just like, no, new guys, you're coming to Southampton with us. So they dragged us all to bloody Southampton. Of course, I only get back at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and I'm on a minibus. And as I walk on the minibus, whoever the driver was or whatever, they was like, "God, he's been drinking last night. Stinks of vodka." But they're the things that you do. And yes, it's funny. It's good. And do you know what? You troop through it, absolutely. But there is a point where we need to start saying, I've suffered afterwards. That could be a personal thing, nothing to do with the army. But alcohol is an easy way out, isn't it? Just like any other of these things, and that's what humans we go to what's comfortable.
So I often look at this, and I said that it's almost like you've had a full rewiring job of your own.
I'm still rewiring it.
You're still rewiring.
Struggling.
but it does take that. You obviously realised things had to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
You had to change,
and you have got to be accountable for that as well. You can't just be. Nobody can just be like, oh well, I've been through this, I've done that. No, you've got to try yourself. But at the same time, when you do try, you should make sure that you've got a network of people around you that are there to help in that instance. You give a bit, they're going to give it. And that is one, very important thing for me. Getting rid of the people out of your life that just aren't benefiting it. And it might sound a little bit harsh, but your life is very important. It's very short, actually.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So you've got to make the best
You've
out
got
of it.
to, yeah. You've got to, and no doubt you've probably got kids, family, all this that they depend on you.
Now, obviously, it can be a real difficult transition from not just about if you've been in the army and whatever, but coming from employment to self-employment. It's massive bravery in a lot of ways, as I know, because you've got the security of an income coming in there. How easy did you find that to move from employment to self-employment?
I suppose it kind of came in waves, like I definitely wasn't scared about doing it. At the same time, it went well at the start. And then, of course, I did have problems, but that's because I wasn't looking after my home life at the time. It was the stress and the fun. So basically what happened is I didn't make a business plan. I didn't plan. I didn't think of my family at the time when I went out to do it. I was like, no, I'm an electrician. I'm going to I was with the NIC at the time then. I rang them. I was like, right, what do I need? You know what I mean? How do we get this sorted? Sorted it, and then that's it. Business name, you are then established as a business. Self-employed or whatever, as a sole trader. And I was just eager to get out there. And of course you do go out there and you get it and you're like, God, I can earn loads of money. There's loads, you got cash here, that's the thing, you forget it. But at the same time, the end of the month comes and your material bills are there. You're like, oh, this money I had, I ain't got that much money.
And it's like, out it goes.
What do I do? It's so it takes a lot of planning. But I mean, I'd rather people try that though and just go into it than not try at all.
Yes.
If they were thinking about it, because it takes like the old cliche say, Rome wasn't built in a day, and life is a journey. I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every failure you can take something good out of it. Failure is probably the most valuable learning lesson. Let's be honest. So yeah, but it's not easy, but nothing really is these days, is it? You know what I mean? There's so many variables in life as it is. It's a confusing place sometimes, the world.
I mean, I know you are young compared to me, but there's another generation even below you.
Yeah.
And do you think that sometimes they think that this entrepreneurial is like easy?
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because I think there is probably partly true that. Because you've got these with the internet, YouTube, all this stuff that's very, very popular at the minute, and it's changing, and at a rate that we can't keep up with. You see them, but it's so hard to differentiate. Are they? What's going on behind the lines there? Do you know what I mean? What's actually, are they successful? Because it's easy to look. We can all look successful. That's easy. Being successful is different. So yeah, I mean, the younger generation, it's. I don't know. I hope they're all going to be okay, because there's a tough life ahead of them. But
I think with sort of my generation and even yours, we had sort of a bit of resilience. We was told to go out and if you cut yourself, you cut yourself.
Things were simpler.
Yeah.
Things were simpler, and I really miss that part of life. And because now we've delved into
it's like a cotton wool aesthetic, I often think now, isn't it?
But it's bound with lots of different intricate details that, that contradict others, So, like, there's no clear path forward. It's difficult to navigate life. I really do believe that for anybody at whatever age. Because you've got the other side of the spectrum here, like the elderly. Yeah. It's just, I think there used to be quite like the word for it, like a continuum. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Consistent throughout, there's not that anymore. Every generation is different.
It is. It's very different.
No one knows where we're at.
No, we don't. Now, obviously, there's bits that we all love about our jobs and bits that we don't like. Give us a bit that you don't like, Mike.
Ooh, well, climbing in lofts has got to be, not a nice one.
On a nice hot day like today.
Exactly. I mean, I'd probably try and save that job for a cooler day. But yeah, of course, the insulation, you get sweaty, it goes in. There's always a wasp nest up there as well in the summer, so that's always fun.
How'd you do with that?
Well, of course, we've got health and safety procedures to go through, whatever. But when you're trapped in a loft that's only that big, and you're at the EVIT and you see it, at the end of the day, you just got to not disturb anything and back out, and then call someone to get rid of it. If it's live, obviously,
What is your greatest pet peeve, do you think? What really grinds you when? Is it maybe like us? I would just imagine like if you go into some real shoddy work that's been done before.
Yeah. Yeah, that is it is annoying, but so things like that do annoy me, of course, because just why not take pride in your work? I think where you mainly see that type of work though is it's when like there's more detail than it. You know, these are usually the companies that take on these massive amounts of work, will charge it out or subcontract it out at smaller amounts of money.
Yeah.
And then the tradesmen, they have got a choice. You just shouldn't do it. You should make your own, make your own way. But that's how those circumstances happen. And I don't like to see it because, you should be proud. And at the end of the day, we've all got a job to do. It's got to be done correctly. If we don't do it correctly, then why even turn up?
Now, I think I know there's a misunderstanding about your industry, and that's only because I watch these TikToks at the minute, and there's a little bit of like ribbing with electricians and giving it the money like that.
I know.
Please tell me it's not quite like that.
Yeah, no, it's a funny one because it's always like that, I mean, and technically, electricians and plumbers are, technically the highest paid. But I think that this is a dying out thing now. Like I see more plasterers now. They've got the money, the plasterers, and they've got no paperwork to do. They've got very little responsibility. It's not a bad thing, plastering.
Controversial, Mike.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna get shot out now.
Do you have any team that work with you yet, or is that something that you're looking to build up over time?
So a few years ago, I did get to that point where I had, and then unfortunately, I went through a divorce. Life, happened, and of course, my business took a bit of a hit from it. So now I'm, again, I'm just happy to be. I've got plenty of work in, loads of work in.
So you're a solopreneur.
This is it, yeah. I mean, and that will change, but of course, the things I've learned from the failures before is I don't need to rush. I don't need to rush. So when the time is right, then I have got plans, 100%.
You do often see that sometimes some companies like go a bit big shot too quickly,
yeah.
And then all of a sudden it collapses. Rather than
in the electricians, so many.
Growing organically is the best way you feel.
From my experience, yes. And I don't get me wrong. I might have done the latter to start with. That's the thing. But again, if you learn from it, it's not all over, is it?
No.
It's key information for your success, which is going to make you successful.
I mean, there are a lot of jobs out there, and some of them I call jobs that maybe people go to university for, and then they can't find employment. But electricians and all these other trades are totally valuable in my eyes. So, if there's any of the young watching, and they often do on this podcast, and they're looking to maybe go into it and find a career, how would you basically encourage them to maybe look at being an electrician?
Yeah, so it's funny this because I actually get emailed probably 3 times a month.
Wow.
But by college age, she's looking for apprenticeships, and of course, if I had some and I was ready, you do. But there's this the amount that I get obviously shows that there's so many actual wanting to be electricians that you know what I mean. But look, at the end of the day, if you're driven, you'll get it.
Yeah.
It is you've got to kind of push your way to the front, and how you do that is by research. Who are you? Who are you applying to? What's the company? Tell them something that they don't expect you to know about them.
Yeah.
It's going to catch you, isn't it? And then then it gives you your foot's in the door, then, isn't it? But it is persistent, and I think especially with electricians, out the trays, because of the whole myth of we're so we're rolling in money, that's why they all want to be electricians, which we are. I'm not saying it's not profitable. It is profitable, but it comes with you're only going to make a successful business if you manage your business correctly. I've seen so many people fail, and when you go to the jobs, the last electrician just left. He just didn't turn up. And you're like, why?
That is a frustrating thing. Just as like when you wait for a quote, wait for people to come round. Please tell me you're different.
No, well, so I said no then. No, I am different. Now, and it's something I've learned this because I was always generally quite good, but of course, like I say, when I was a few years ago and I was getting busy, I was doing a lot of work, and there was me, maybe 2 guys with me, right? But on the aftermath of that, I've got 5-6 jobs on all at once, big jobs. You know what I mean? There's the certification, there's invoices, there's all sorts of stuff. If you don't keep on that, then it's just not going to work. So it's like what we say when I do my certificate. So if I do a EICR for someone, you will have that certificate 24 hours later.
That's good.
because that's better for me. That's how
Yeah.
we get it done. You know, it's the only way.
And do you
Now,
think,
of course, if demand went up, then you know, we'd maybe have to make that bigger. But right now, that's what I do, and I make sure I do it and the relief when it's done. Because this is when I go to people's houses. I turn up, and they are literally like, "This guy's not giving me the certificate." It's because he's gone home, he's took the money. He's done that, and he's probably chilled out too much, and then it becomes a burden. And then he's like, "Oh, where's my readings at? Where did I put this? Where that?" Then he can't make a certificate because he'd be making it all up, and it'd be
exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Get it done
Yes.
first time round. That's
And
what we say.
It's easy. Now with these platforms, you've got templates you can make and all sorts, so it's easy work.
Now then, to my favourite section, the quick fire questions.
Right,
I want to know, in quick terms, what was the worst job you've ever done?
Oh, right. Well, probably I used to do testing for that when I did that first job, and it wasn't just the foam mass I used to do. I used to do like sewage treatment plants.
Oh,
And guy, I've just not got a nose for that stuff.
no.
It's just horrible. I don't know how people do it. You know, I respect them because someone's got to do those jobs.
Somebody has.
But yeah, you know, there was a lot of them. Obviously, you know, these companies, the person I worked for, they must have got a contract with that industry, and yeah, hated it.
And I know I do apologise for these questions, but if you've ever been shocked and if your hair stood on end?
Yeah, so you know, I mean, I think any electrician would be lying if they said they haven't had a little shock. Of course, you know, we do tend to work, you know, with the safe isolation procedures and whatnot. So you know, nowadays we don't, you know, I don't take those risks of working live. Now, when I was younger. You know, and an apprentice, of course, working for someone else, then yeah, I got shocked.
Anything goes.
Yeah, but that's another thing, you know, it's.
Now, if your toolbox had a theme tune when you opened it, what would that theme tune be?
It'd have to be the Rocky theme tune, wouldn't it?
That's an excellent one. Yeah.
Prep yourself up, ready to go to work.
That's it. Yeah, you like that, getting limbered up, getting ready
in.
for work.
That's it.
Oh, well, Mike, thank you so much for coming in. Now, if you are looking for a great electrician who will turn up when he says he's going to turn up and be able to give you some good advice and is well structured, get in touch. You'll find all the details below in the description. And of course, if you would like to join me for a podcast, again, all the details are below. I don't bite at all. I'm quite nice.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure.
So, Mike, thank you very much for coming in. I can just imagine that your company is going to go from strength to strength.
Well, that's what we hope for. That's what we'll strive for.
Wishing you all the very best for your future.
That's